The Bills are gonna make you shout. Come on now, shout. Come on now. You suck. You suck. Sorry. Personal bias. Let's go, Buffalo. Let's go, Buffalo. You won't win a Super Bowl. You won't win a Super Bowl. We will win a Super Bowl. Shut up, Patriots fan. Regardless. So, anyway, it's time to talk about the Buffalo Bills. The Bills were one of the original AFL franchises in the 1960s. Of course, the AFL started in 1960 as a competitor to the NFL, trying to break up that freaking monopoly. And the monopoly, it was broken. The Bills had a few AFL titles, 64 65, if memory serves me correctly. But Buffalo, of course, wasn't much of the same team after they moved from the AFL to the NFL and in the AFC. The Bills made a few decent 80s playoff performances by Joe Ferguson, but unfortunately they couldn't do anything. Buffalo's key guy was O.J. Simpson, who ran the ball a lot. In 1968, the Bills actually got O.J. Simpson in a big draft day coup. They got the #1 pick. Philadelphia fans will never forgive their Eagles for starting out like 0-9 and then all of a sudden win two meaningless games because the Bills ended up getting the #1 draft pick. And that'd be OJ. So anyway, OJ Simpson would be all Buffalo would have. I'm not going to speculate on the rest of OJ's time on Earth. Like, he's still alive, but anyway. Alright, the Bills made a few playoff runs. They were decent. But then came a gunslinger who first went into the USFL and then jumped ship to the NFL. Jim Kelly, part of the great quarterback class of '83 that included Todd Blackledge, Tony Eason, Dan Marino, Ken O'Brien, and John Elway, obviously, the big six quarterbacks. Yeah, Jim Kelly. Kelly did not, of course, start in Buffalo. He actually ended up being in Buffalo, going to the USFL and hone his skills. Good news for Buffalo as he honed his skills and helped the Bills make some playoff runs. Heck, they were close to defrauding the Browns one year in the playoffs. I think it was 1989, 89-90. But anyway, the Bills lost to Cleveland. But then, funny as it sounds, they didn't lose an AFC playoff game until 1995. How so? Well, you remember the 30 for 30 film, The Four Falls of Buffalo? One of the best 30 for 30s of all time. And yeah, I'm not ashamed to say it, I taped it. Well, then watched it and know how Buffalo fans are crumbling and all that. So, in 1991, the Buffalo Bills ended up winning the AFC title game against the LA Raiders. And I'm not wrong, they were the LA Raiders at the time, by a score of, get this, 51-3. I'm not joking. Look it up if you have to. That's the same day as the Giants, of course, using 5 field goals from Matt Barr and it to beat an injured Joe Montana 15-13 to knock the Giants into the Super Bowl and avoid a three-peat by the Niners. So the Bills took on the Giants. It was a good game. In the closest game that you can possibly have in regulation. Bills were down 20-19. They got a safety on Jeff Hostetler, who kept the ball in his hands. If it wasn't for Hostetler keeping the ball in the end zone, the Bills could have got a touchdown. It would have been big. But the Bills were basically outclassed by Bill Parcells, who basically did possession. If the Bills can't get the ball, the Bills can't get the ball when they don't have the ball. So anyway, the Bills had a chance. Scott Norwood, 47 yards on the Tampa Stadium turf. Wide right. And that started a trend of Buffalo falling flat on their asses. Now, to be fair and devil's advocate, is that Norwood wasn't really good from over 40 yards on grass. Remember, Buffalo didn't play on grass. They played on turf. Obviously because, of the cold climate and all that. No big deal. The Bills came back in 92. They were making a few playoff runs. They beat John Elway and the Broncos in the AFC title game on their turf. So now they have to play Washington, owners of an 11-0 start and a 14-2 overall record, at the Metrodome in Minneapolis. I know Minnesota was just as cold as Buffalo, but they had to play in a dome. The Bills were jinxed when Furman Thomas forgot his helmet and couldn't find it. He found it later on, but missed the first series for the Bills. Washington took advantage with a 37-24 win. Mark Rippon, Canadian, was named MVP. No big deal. The Bills took 93. There was a lot of twists and turns, especially the wildcard game at home against Houston. They were down 35-3, and Houston had a trip to Pittsburgh all but sewn up. But Buffalo waited in the wings. Andre Reed making those touchdown catches, Houston fumbling the passes. Basically, they trying to run the clock down, basically them rooting their own offense. The Bills end up winning the game in overtime. Steve Christie, Oakville, Ontario. Thank you very much. With the kick, Buffalo then goes to Pittsburgh and beats Bill Cowher and the Steelers, and goes to Miami to beat Dan Marino and the Dolphins. I kid you not, the Bills won the 93 AFC title game not in Buffalo, but in Miami. They beat Dan Marino. So another star quarterback taking the brunt. The Raiders, who the hell was their star quarterback? Steve Burloin? I don't know. But anyway, regardless of what happened, the Bills would now take on the Dallas Cowboys, who 4 years before were the laughingstocks, 1-15 season in '89. However, thanks to a great trade for Herschel to get rid of Herschel Walker, the Cowboys were stockpiling draft picks, and boy howdy did they use them, especially Emmitt Smith. And boy howdy did Dallas crush Buffalo 52-17 at that Super Bowl in Pasadena. Leon Lett had a chance to give Dallas the most points in a Super Bowl. Nope, he was hot dogging it left, right, and center, and then Don Beebe made it a touchback. Oh, Leon. Now the Bills were frustrated, and guess what? They were going to their fourth straight AFC title game, taking on the Kansas City Chiefs at Buffalo Stadium. What happened? The Bills won and knocked Joe Montana from the game. Joe Montana just came off a massive comeback to send the Houston Oilers home from the playoffs. It would have been nice seeing Buffalo Houston in the AFC title game at the Astrodome. So the Bills end up going to the Super Bowl against Dallas. They actually do a lot better. They actually are tied in the first half. They looked good. Furman Thomas had a chance. He fumbles the ball. Touchdown, Dallas. James Washington, if memory serves me right. Buffalo couldn't resist, but they lost 4 straight Super Bowls. The worst news for everyone is that the rule of thumb is that the what-if scenarios cannot have a team lose in the Super Bowl and see if they win again. You could lose in the conference championship and then see what you could have done in the Super Bowl. That's legal. However, the rules are not. So it's like, which Buffalo team would you have picked? I would have picked the 91 Bills. They actually only lost by 1 point, and they had the best Super Bowl of the 4 teams. So anyway, Buffalo went as well as Jim Kelly. Basically, Jim Kelly loses to the Jacksonville Jaguars in his final playoff game. Final game overall. The Bills are laughingstock, especially in the 2000s, the new millennium. The Bills did play in the first playoff game of the new millennium, the new decade, the new century, if you will. Well, I know purists say the century started in 2001 because there was no year 0. But this is my thing. So anyway, the Bills from the game I'm going to be describing to you until 2017 never got to a postseason. They were close on like 3 or 4 occasions, but they never got over the hump. Mostly playing in a division with the New England Patriots would do that to you. But the Bills made the playoffs on the final day of the season thanks to an Andy Dalton late touchdown pass against Baltimore that knocked the Ravens out of the playoffs and put the Bills in the playoffs. Many Bills fans gave donations to Andy Dalton's charities as a result of that. But unfortunately, the Bills got creamed defensively by the Jacksonville Jaguars in one of the most defensive games of all time that no offense was going to do well. Jacksonville beat Buffalo. But that's minor compared to this. The what-if scenario I'm doing is basically the 99-2000 Buffalo Bills. The year prior, Buffalo had decided to address their quarterback problems. So they got Doug Flutie, who was off 2 Grey Cups with the Toronto Argonauts, to come down south and have another chance at the Super Bowl. Because Doug Flutie was not really much of an NFL quarterback the first time before he went to British Columbia and then to Calgary, then to Toronto. I was so pissed off, I refused to have anything to do with the Toronto Argonauts. Doug Flutie left Toronto, fuck him. I'm going to switch to the Montreal Alouettes. And I'm still an Alouettes fan to this day. Thank you very much. Regardless, Doug Flutie was going to be the quarterback. And then a few days later, they signed Rob Johnson to a 5-year contract. Rob Johnson had one game coming off the bench for Mark Brunell in Jacksonville, and Buffalo decided to throw 5 years, $25 million at him. Well, the quarterback carousel happened, but Doug Flutie did beat Jacksonville in a very famous game in Buffalo. Last second touchdown run for him. Greg Gumbel, I believe, was the guy who was on the call. And Flutie magic was more. So was Flutie Flakes. Kind of like Frosted Flakes, but with Doug Flutie on them. But it did have a purpose. Doug Flutie's son, Doug Jr., was born with autism. And I don't know how old he is. I think he's like in his 20s, 30s, or all that. But the Flutie Flakes thing went to help with trying to help autistic kids. Well, we should be doing something like that in Ontario because our stupid premier is basically fucking up the autism funding. But that's neither here nor there. This is not a political rant. This is a NFL what if. So anyway, the problem with the Bills in 99-2000 was that they had Flutie and Johnson. They both were consistent and inconsistent. Wade Phillips made the dumbass decision to put Rob Johnson in at quarterback against the Titans in Tennessee in the first game of the 21st century. Because, the Y2K thing, NFL was scared, so they decided to put playoff games 1 week later. Well, thankfully, the Y2K didn't happen, and everyone was smart enough to realize technology was better than we thought. So anyway, Y2K happened. And then, 2000, the year 2000 happened. And then, what are we going to do? Well, the Buffalo Bills play the Tennessee Titans in the wildcard game. And it's weird to have a 13-3 team in a wildcard game. That's a record for most wins by a team that had to play a wildcard game. Because Jacksonville won the AFC Central with a 14-2 mark. Tennessee was 13-3. Although the Titans did beat the Jaguars both times they met in the regular season. So what do you expect? But the Bills had a 16-15 lead with 30 seconds left. They kick a field goal. They decided to kick it short to Wycheck. And then he does the home run throwback to Mason. And Derek Mason runs down the left sideline for a touchdown. Game over. The Titans win the game. It makes me think that the Bills should have just kicked it deeper, and then hopefully the Titans would have fucked up their home run throwback play, as they named it. The Bills were pissed off, and so were fans, thinking that it was a forward pass, an illegal forward lateral. Unfortunately, there were problems, and basically the referee allowed it to happen. Phil Lockett, if memory serves me right. Bills fans would never let this down. And that was the last playoff game for 18 years. I was like, what the hell, man? So, in this scenario, we get rid of the stupid Music City Miracle. The refs say, after further review, it was a forward pass. The Titans will be flagged. Titans could not get downfield for the winning field goal. Game over. Buffalo wins. Now, the important thing to know is that the next day, Miami took on Seattle and beat the Seahawks. The Seahawks somehow, in some way, won the AFC West. They were the 3 seed. So, Miami is a 6 seed, obviously, 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5. Would face the number 1 team, that being the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we all know what happened. As I said in my Jaguars thing, Jacksonville beat the shit out of Miami and Denver, 62-7. So, that automatically means that Buffalo would be with the next team. And the next team were the number 2 Indianapolis Colts. Yes, the second year of Peyton Manning's career. The first year was crap. He was 4-12, and then Peyton and the Colts surprisingly were the 2 seed. So then, as we all know, in real life, Tennessee went in Indianapolis and beat them before beating Jacksonville before losing to the Rams. So, here's the thing. Jacksonville does beat Miami. Obviously, that matchup does not get ruined. It's Buffalo versus Indianapolis. So the Bills would have to play the Colts. Now, here's the thing. If the If the Bills win, they'll play Jacksonville for the AFC title game. But here's the thing: if Buffalo loses either to Indy or to Jacksonville, technically we would say the St. Louis Rams are still the Super Bowl champions. The NFC does not get budged unless the Bills somehow make the Super Bowl, and then we'll have to force them to play the Rams. So that's what's going to end up happening. Hope you're in for a bumpy ride. So the Bills take on the number 2 Indianapolis Colts. 13-3 Colts at home at the RCA Dome. What do we got? We got ourselves a Buffalo Bills win? Are you serious? It was tight. It was 10-10 through 2 quarters. Let me give you the fourth quarter stuff. As you see here. Steve Christie kicks a field goal, and then Furman Thomas gets a touchdown run. The legendary Furman Thomas to make it 20-10. The Colts had a 4-and-out, another 4-and-out. They couldn't do anything. Manning got picked off with 5:38 left. They couldn't do anything to save their lives. So unfortunately, for the Colts, they couldn't do a thing. 23-10 is your score. It was actually tight for the first 2 quarters. Christie advantage up the field goals, then Molds from Flutie for a touchdown. Doug Flutie is the quarterback. I guess they made Doug Flutie the quarterback. I should do it if Rob Johnson comes in. Yeah, if Rob Johnson stays hot and all that. Yeah, I should do a double thing. Manning to Harrison, 10-10, and then the fourth quarter is when Christie kicked 2 field goals and Furman Thomas ran one for a touchdown. The old man's got it. 62 yards for Furman Thomas. Edgerrin James 138, but they lost. Flutie 21 for 33, 260, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Payton 9 for 29, 80 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Technically, the what if is what if Doug Flutie started instead of Rob Johnson. I just want to see Rob Johnson would have led the Bills to beat the Colts. If it was him, 9 for 29, 80 yards. That's not Peyton Manning. Tony Blevins got the pick for the Colts. The Bills had Sam Rogers. Christie made a 48-yard field goal, but missed a 43-yarder. That's kind of strange. Okay, so we're going to change it up a bit. So Flutie out, Rob Johnson in. So just going to make a little bit of an adjustment here. So if Rob Johnson was the quarterback, would the Bills have won? The answer is yeah. It predicted that the Bills would have won against the Colts 23-9 this time. Antoine Smith would have ran for a touchdown. Jay Reesma would have got one from Johnson. Basically, the Bills just needed 2 touchdowns. The running game would suck for the Bills. Edgerrin James still hits 100 yards. Payton does it much better in this scenario, 14 for 23, 181. Rob Johnson does fantastic, 280 yards passing. And he only misses 2 passes. That's amazing. Reesma, 76 yards. Molt, 74. Price, 49. Well. And Federer misses a 45-yard field goal, although it doesn't matter. Now comes the hard part. So now we get the Bills, and now we get the Jaguars. Because the Jaguars are next in line. So we're going to do the scenario with Rob Johnson because, you know, we might as well give him. Jacksonville. It was actually nice and sunny. So let's just get the 70 Fahrenheit. With Rob Johnson, the Jaguars get revenge on their former quarterback, 31-21. So technically, the Bills would lose the scenario with Rob Johnson. Jacksonville would take a 10-0 lead after 1 quarter, Taylor and Hollis. And then you see the second quarter, Molds and Jay Reesma with touchdown catches, Jimmy Smith with one from Brunel. Andre Reed makes it 24-21, but James Stewart saves the day. Rob Johnson is named player of the game. Why? I don't know. Stewart and Taylor do great as a running 1-2. Rob Johnson does throw for 3 touchdowns, 273, and a loss. Boy, he would have had a great effort. But the Jaguars would have still crushed them. Steve Christie missed a 33-yard field goal. But because I really want Doug Flutie in this situation, it's kind of a double what if. Oops. I apologize, that was the wrong one. Okay, there's the depth chart. And I actually made the depth chart for Anton Smith being number 1, Furman Thomas number 2, and John Linton number 3. So, you see Jacksonville, the great 1-2, Stewart and Taylor. Now comes the hard part. What will this scenario bring? The Bills would win with Doug Flutie 17-6. So I guess we'll be going to the Super Bowl against the LA Rams. Sorry, the St. Louis Rams. Doug Flutie is the hero. Well, duh. What else would it have been? The running game doesn't work for either side. Flutie 10 for 18, 197, and a touchdown. Much worse than his predecessor, but at least he leads the Bills to win. Brunel gets picked off by Ken Irvin. So yeah, Hollis makes 2 field. So now we have a problem. We have the Super Bowl in Atlanta at the Georgia Dome. I think it was Atlanta. Yeah, it was Atlanta. Oh, it's probably gonna be piss poor and say it's at St. Louis Rams. Yeah, it doesn't. Stupid Chew Stadium. It'll say the Georgia Dome. Yeah, so we're at the Georgia Dome, 11-5 versus 13-3. What the Rams have beaten the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl with Doug Flutie. I would like to say, yay, Buffalo. There you go. After all that, you win. You're the 15 to win your what if. You have a 1 in 4 chance. Wrongo. 4 out of 20, so only 20%. No, 5 out of 20 would have been 25%. Another loss. 33-10. The Rams would have crushed them. The Bills had a 10-7 lead, but Jeff Wilkins put up 4 field goals. The Bills couldn't do anything offensively after the first quarter. Marshall Faulk, the hero. Yep. Warner, 18 for 33, 244. Flutie, 11 for 21, 117. 2 touchdowns. 2 picks for Buffalo. And the interceptions by Cody and Taj Allen. Basically, the Rams would have made mincemeat out of Doug Flutie. So I guess Doug Flutie would have been a great guy. Got him to the AFC title game and got them past Jacksonville. But in the end, it's just all for naught. Bad luck, Buffalo. I take pity on you. I do. I seriously do. This time.